It says Doctor Chaffee. I'm 6 months in, I'm presuming carnivore, and I don't think I'm fat adapted. I still have liquid, I'm assuming stools, and have not had a solid movement since I started. So just to address that, that's a common thing that people come up with. Sort of need to know a little bit more about that, though, because most of the time, people are still eating things that aren't 100% carnivore and can influence their bowels. Coffee and tea are both laxatives, right? Artificial sweeteners are laxatives, and so sometimes people have coffee and tea and put artificial sweeteners in it, and then they are confused as to why they're having massive running stools. So that's a major one. And when you cut out fiber from your diet, then you're just pushing liquid around instead of this big clog of 2x4 that's having to pass through your colon. And so that's the thing. So if you're eating anything else besides just meat and water, get rid of it and see how you go. It's not about being fat adapted. That's not fat adapted. Fat adaptation is that you're able to run on your body's own fat and make ketones, blood sugar, and liver glycogen. So that's already happened, because if you're not eating carbohydrates, you're still alive, then you're fat adapted, right? Because you're making the energy. You haven't dropped dead from a lack of that. So which is never going to happen. Like, your body's not going to do that. So you are fat adapted. That's not a problem. Having runny stools is not about being fat adapted. That's either from having something that's a laxative or from eating a lot more fat than your body can absorb. And then it just goes out because you don't absorb it. Your body doesn't want to absorb every ounce of fat that you eat. It wants to absorb the amount of fat that it wants for its needs. And then it doesn't want the rest, right? So you have, bile, and it's really hard for your body to absorb fat without bile. And so when you run out of bile, fat goes out. A little bit will be absorbed, not much. And so that can be liquid. Now, the other thing is that if you are just eating meat and just eating fat, and you're sort of pulling back on the fat and pulling back on the fat, that usually works for most people. But then there are some people that just for whatever reason just find that they have a difficult time with more liquid fat, like rendered fat, like beef drippings or tallow or something like that. And that just seems to go through them very quick. And the solution for them is to eat solid fat, cellular fat that's in the tissue. And then you chew that up, you swallow it, and it takes a longer for your body to break down that cellular structure and get at the fat. And so it's just sort of like a time delay medication, a slow release medication that just weeps out a little bit at a time, and then your body can absorb that and trap it down better. And some people actually would eat the fat uncooked and then cook the steak up and eat that afterwards. And they find that, and the people that have had those issues with just, they really can't figure out what's going on with loose stools, and have done all the different things that I recommended there, they find that works. So I haven't seen anyone that has not resolved their issues going down that stepwise progression.
Yeah, I think the same. There's lots of things we can do to sort of help our absorption. I got to a point where I like to try everything that they put out, the other influencers and things like the high fat 80-20, all these things. But I can't speak on it unless I try it, I can't just work on other anecdotes. It's not always the best indicator of what's good and what's not. Basically me, obviously I'm quite a heavy chap. I, need a lot of energy. I was eating, I think, up to 380 grams of fat per day on a high fat approach. And my protein was something like 180 grams. So you guys can imagine how much butter that is, basically. My body did not adjust to it very well. It took about 2 weeks, but after that point, it's fine. But bear in mind, guys, I'm quite young. So for someone else, you might just add 10 grams per day or every few days. So you just up it that way. I find a lot of people overdo the protein, I think, as well. But you just got to find your satiety spot. I think people have a protein and a fat kind of grammage that they need. And oftentimes they come from a background where, like my mum, for example, she's not carnivore, but she's more animal-based now. She could not do a high-fat approach. She's been on a low-fat diet for the most of her life. She'd have to really transition to it. So that's kind of how I'm going about it. And like you said, the raw, unrendered beef fat works well.